Okay, standards, we'll take standards 12 and 13 together. Those are about cells and cell function. And this is when we just looked at the organelles starting out. So we know that cells have, these are like the organs, mini little organs inside the cells. So the cells have a nucleus. And that's where all the DNA is. That's where the genetic replication goes on, right inside the nucleus. At least it starts there. And then we know that DNA, it is in charge of making proteins, like its code that comes out of the cell. It's transported out, of the nucleus, and it codes like a recipe book for proteins. So if the cell needs new things, then the DNA codes for them, and they make new proteins out of that. And proteins are what all, like the cell wall is made of proteins, all the organelles are made of proteins. And so if we need any new proteins anywhere, like we need to fix the cell wall, then it's going to come from the genetic coding inside the nucleus. It's going to come out, and then it's going to make new proteins out here. So another organelle is the mitochondria. And inside the mitochondria, that is in charge of cellular respiration. That's its function. So I'm going to write mitochondria too, so we don't get mitochondria. So that's the name of what that is, and this is the function. Cellular respiration, that is the breakdown of glucose to make ATP. Now ATP, that's the energy that the cell uses to do everything that it does. So remember Newton's laws of motion? The first one, an object remains at rest unless acted upon by a force. So if you don't have any energy, you're not going anywhere. And so any functions, anything that happens in the cell, which basically is what happens in the body, it happens in the cell, it has to be fueled by ATP. And that ATP is created in cellular respiration in the mitochondria. Okay, the cell membrane. The main thing we need to remember about the cell membrane is that it is semi-permeable. Meaning it will let some things in, and it'll block other things from coming in. So it's in charge of, it's like the door monitor. Somebody, maybe like if you go to a concert or a movie and you need to have a ticket to get in, if you don't have the ticket, you're not getting in, and that person won't let you in. But if you have a ticket, you'll be allowed to come in. So the cell membrane is in charge of that. It says, okay, some people can come in and some people can't. Or some nutrients can come in, some molecules can come in, and some cannot. And so that's the function of the cell membrane. Let's see. And then we have two more things, but they happen, let me see, do we have? Nucleus, cell membrane, mitochondria, cell wall, and chloroplast. So the cell wall and the chloroplast don't happen in a human cell or a mammal cell. It happens in just a plant cell. Remember, plant cells are square, and they have cell walls. Okay, they also have cell membranes in here, but human cells and other like I said, animal cells don't have cell walls. But plant cells do. So plant cells have cell walls, and they also have chloroplasts. So chloroplasts is where the function of those is where photosynthesis takes place. So that's when they convert the sun's energy plus water, the water it gets, plus CO2 that it absorbs. All those things are used, and they make out of it glucose. So that same glucose that's broken down in the mitochondria in the animal cell and in our cells is created by the plant cell. So this glucose, you'll learn this in 8th grade, is C6H12O6. And it's made up out of water, carbon dioxide, and the sun's energy. And when that's broken down in the mitochondria, that the sun's energy that was stored in between those atoms is released. And that's how our cells function. Pretty cool, huh? So chloroplasts, the interesting thing too is that cells also have mitochondria because they need to have energy to actually do all these things. So they're not this is not how they obtain their energy. Even though they're converting the sun's energy, they're making this. They're like the factory that makes this, but they also, all the factory workers have to eat something in order to be able to produce the glucose. So they also have mitochondria, and that's where they get their energy. So you need to remember that this is the one place that you get that energy is broken down. This is the assembling of energy, right? And like all the stuff we eat, like even a Pop-Tart, right? It was once a plant. It was once a wheat plant. And your cereal in the morning, your sandwiches, pasta, all that stuff once used to be a plant. And so the energy that you're getting is because of photosynthesis that the chloroplasts use to convert the sun's energy and these other two molecules into glucose. When your body eats those things, like a Pop-Tart or a sandwich with the bread, then it breaks down all of those nutrients, and eventually when it gets to the cell, this is what's left, the C6H12O6, which is broken down in the mitochondria. So in this one, you also need to remember, this was our crazy metaphor one. It was super hard for you guys to do, but it's just saying, like, if your cell was a house, then which part of the cell would the walls be? So you could say cell wall, because that keeps out like excess water and bacteria and things like that, and so do maybe even colder temperatures. That could help, right? Because that's what our house walls do. They keep us protected inside here. So the cell wall. Also, if you're going to say, okay, nucleus, what's a metaphor for nucleus? So if you're looking for the function of the nucleus, what would be the nucleus of our school? And many people said, okay, it's the principal, because he controls the school. And so the nucleus is the control center of the cell. That's the control center. So wherever the control center is in any metaphoric thing, then that would be like your nucleus. Like in the airport, wherever the control center is, that would be like your nucleus. So like maybe that tower that is able to figure out where the planes are, who's landing, when those planes can land. That's your control center of the airport, and that's going to be just like your nucleus in a cell. Okay, so the last thing I'll talk about is that if somebody's sick and one of their main symptoms is is a low energy levels. Low energy or like muscle fatigue, and then you've ruled out a ton of other diseases or sicknesses that this could likely be. What you might look at is the mitochondria in a cell. So if there's a problem getting energy to the body, we know this is where energy is produced in the body. So a lot of times doctors might check out, well, is the mitochondria working correctly or not? And a lot of, these low energy issues could be coming because that is not functioning properly in all of our cells. And let's just say if all of our cells had the same problem of mitochondria failure, then they wouldn't be able to function, right? All their functioning would be like go decrease in ability to do anything, because that's how they get their energy. So it's kind of like if you didn't get your food as a total organism, you didn't get the nourishment that you needed, you might find yourself really being fatigued and lethargic and not able to do a lot. And so same is true of the mitochondria. So that's it for standards 12 and 13.